Yes, hello and welcome to Release the Creative, your favorite show about creativity, cognition, and this week, the Celery Test.
The Celery Test.
The Celery Test. It'll all make sense in time.
They're usually all pretty green. Are we testing the celery, or the celery's testing us?
That's true. What is the thing that looks like celery but is like purple?
Purple. There's leeks are green. There's watercress, that's white.
No, there's something that looks like it's. Oh man, I'm gonna feel silly when I watch this later. I'm like, clearly, Kirk, it was bok choy.
Are you sure? Well, no, that might be it. You slice bok choy, it makes a little U shape, kind of like celery, and it is kind of that might be
purple?
That might be what you're thinking.
Is that
of,
what I'm thinking
is
of?
Bok choy. Yeah, like there's green parts of it, but like that. I
think I might be thinking of bok choy.
Where you're going with it. So you're doing some cooking this weekend? Is that what's going on here?
No, I just didn't like to think about bok choy. It would seem. No, this weekend actually, I'm going skateboarding.
Skateboarding.
I'm almost 40.
This is an activity you're well known for around here, right?
Yes, totally. I've never been This is the first. I bought a skateboard this week. I bought a skateboard this week, and it is my first skateboard since puberty. I think I got a skateboard for my 8th Christmas. I'm now 38, so
33 decades of non-skateboarding.
3 decades.
Going to turn that switch back on.
Right, and I am. I've been skating around here around the studio, nice concrete floors that I am scuffing the crap out of. I face planted so hard last night that it's almost a shame that it went unwitnessed. Like no one was here to witness the sheer epicitude.
So that's why we got to get Twitch back online for skateboard trials.
Yeah, like seriously, we were to turn our security cameras back on and just like feed them into Twitch 24 hours a day, like Truman Show Kirk, because I'm just always here.
You joke people might watch that.
That's the most depressing thing I've ever heard, that people might watch that. But no, I was talking with a friend and they were like, "Hey, do you skate?" And I was like, "No, I do not. I was not cool in the 90s. Sorry."
Yeah.
Or at any point really. And they're like, "Well, yeah, this person at the skate park I go to is like 44 and they're learning. You should try it." I'm like, this sounds like a terrible idea, and therefore, of course, I'm in.
That's there's our
their
book.
Very best bad idea. And I'm like, you know what? Okay. So I bought a helmet, and I bought a cheapy skateboard.
Oh, yeah, I saw the helmet came today.
Yeah, and I've been learning. It's amazing. On Monday, I had never been skating. On Tuesday, it was proposed. On Tuesday afternoon, I bought a skateboard and a helmet. They got here on Thursday morning, and I've been skating for, I don't know,
2 days.
2 days now, and I'm hitting a skate park tomorrow. And like next time you see me, when I have like a broken ankle and or neck, it'll all make sense.
So your friend should be videotaping the whole time.
If I don't TikTok this.
Yeah, please come back with footage.
If I don't TikTok this, I'm doing something very, very wrong.
I'm imagining all the videos I've seen of like toddlers walking in front of skateboarders at the park and them getting knocked over, and you'll be the toddler in this case.
I really want a TikTok of like a 12-year-old walking up to me like, "Excuse me, sir, you're doing that wrong." And I'll be like, "Shut up, man. I know." But yeah, no, it's amazing. Amazon's the coolest place ever. Again, as a small business owner, I feel dirty for saying that. But again, I didn't have a skateboard on Monday. I didn't know I needed one on Tuesday and have one on Thursday.
Yeah, I got the little notice that Amazon had dropped off a package, and I went up there, and it was your helmet and my HDMI adapters all together. And I was like, okay, I know what these are, and the helmet for some reason.
It's funny. Like if you go through my Amazon like history, like I have children and stuff. Like it's funny clicking back between our Amazon history and my Amazon history. Like if you go to mine, it's like all sorts of weird, just random stuff like unicorns and princess stuff because I have 4 daughters and a son, and it's this crazy thing. And then you go to ours, and it's like just all tech stuff, all tech. Like it's the same thing if you go to my Audible list. It's like lots of really crazy fiction and business books. It paints quite the picture.
Yeah, I always know when you've got on the. You've been browsing on the wrong account, because I'll go into the shopping cart and it'll be like, HDMI cord, knife sheath, and I'll be like, oh, that one was not
related.
Business related.
No, I mean, you don't know. Yeah, like exactly. Like it's like exactly. Road flares, HDMI. Exactly. It paints quite the picture.
Yes. Well, I've been in the middle of. I don't even know what you call it. I've made about 30 different Amazon orders in the past 48 hours because we're continuing to improve the studio, and
it's looking so good though.
We're up to the, let me see if everybody on YouTube can see. We are now switching our cameras with the iPad, which is exciting, but it's little things like that. Like we're getting pretty happy with the way it looks, but now I'm adding additional control. We're putting ports in the walls so we can plug computers in, So I've been, I think I get an Amazon order about every 3 hours now, and then they don't come together. They just show up at random times.
It's always so interesting. Like I remember, like I got so excited yesterday when I got a couple of packages and I opened it up and it was like, I was so excited. It was like all our studio upgrade stuff. And I'm like, ooh, wall ports and HDMI dongles. And like, it's like, man, 12-year-old Kirk would be so disappointed in me that I am so excited over this box of boring crap.
Box of cables.
It's a box of cables and doodads and dongles. And to me, I'm like, this is the best day ever. But it's
a box of cables that is only half the stuff. We can't get started yet because we don't have all the cables.
Right. No, but it all makes sense. If you line up all of the things that we have purchased, it tells a story. It tells it like you wouldn't have to like, if Brooklyn Nine-Nine was looking through our order history,
purchase history,
purchase history, they'd be able to be like, clearly
nerds.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we do not need Aaron Hotchner. That is a Criminal Minds joke. To profile these guys, just dweebs, totally from top to bottom. Have you ever played the game? With either it's a party game or sometimes you play it with yourself, just when checking out at a grocery store, thinking to yourself like, man, what do these purchases say? Like, what does this all, like, I'm buying drop cloth, rope, duct tape, and razor blades, and it just, wow, this paints a really bleak picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually the best times are when it's accidental, and you've bought, ice cream, ice cream, Crisco, and Saran wrap, and
ew,
there's a fun Friday night in that.
You and I have a very different definition of a fun Friday night. Crisco, Saran wrap, and ice cream. Damn, I know lots about you now. That's interesting. No, and it's like I was at a party once and like, make a cashier uncomfortable with 3 purchases. Mm-hmm. What are the 3? And I'm like, okay, lighter fluid, like it can go like so wrong so fast. I remember when my wife was pregnant and I always used to notice like I'm there buying like pickles, marshmallows, cereal, and like and a rutabaga.
That one's pretty easy to guess though. So like it on the surface seems weird, but like nope, people can figure out, oh, pregnant lady.
Yeah. Especially with a guy at 2 a.m. there just looking exhausted buying. They're like, no, this story tracks. Like everything about this makes sense.
Top to bottom. So
all of this actually plays into the celery test.
Okay.
And the celery test is just that, is that what's really cool is that this conversation we've had and the reality of we've all played this game, whether actively with a friend or in our head, are like, man, what does my shopping cart say about me? Mm-hmm. Is it all prepackaged foods? Is it all fresh produce? Is it all garbage? Am I buying hardware at the grocery store? Which always says something about a person.
There's a Simpsons joke about this, of course, where Apu is living with the Simpsons because he's been fired, and he goes shopping with Marge at the grocery store, and there's a short line with like 2 people, and then there's a line of like 8 guys, and Marge is like, oh, let's go to the 2-person line, and Apu's like, no. He's like, look, it's 2 like old ladies with the purses. They're gonna like chat forever with the cashier.
I got this penny, and
he says that the other line is he's like, look, they all have like light beer and frozen pizzas. It's like, that's 8 single guys. They're gonna pay with cash. They're gonna get right out, and it's like ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. And so like it was kind of like that power of observation.
What does your But like there's a Simpsons joke about it. There's a party game about it. What does your shopping cart say about you? So the celery test is this. It comes from this book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It is an amazing book. It's an amazing TED Talk. Simon Sinek is pretty awesome. If you are unfamiliar with his work, I cannot recommend that one enough. So this is a complete,
so what's the test? Like, are we doing the test, or is the test somebody else analyzing us?
It's a thought exercise. It's a thought exercise. So imagine yourself at a business mixer, and you're standing at the punch bowl, and someone comes up and goes, "Oh, Jeff, how are things at Glass River Media?" And you talk about it, and he's like, when I was a small company just starting out, or when I was, a few years in, just like you, what really changed my company was Oreos. Oreos changed everything, blew the doors wide open. I didn't know how effective Oreos could be. And now in this case, obviously, Oreos could be, free, wine and cheese nights on Fridays. It could be a ping pong table in the break room. It could be, Oreos could be anything. And then the next table, you go over to the cocktail weenies and, Sharon comes up and goes, hey, Jeff, how have you been? Like, I remember, you'll never believe what we've done this last quarter. This quarter's been great because we implemented marshmallow whip. Like, marshmallow whip, marshmallow topping has been just, and again, marshmallow topping could be anything. It could be any number of like a new CRM, whatever. We implemented this new thing and it changed everything. And they extol some best practice to you that really changed the world for them. And again, first guy says Oreos, second guy says marshmallow whip, third person says M&Ms, fourth person says chocolate topping. And then the last person kind of, as you're leaving, they're like, Jeff, I know you get a lot of advice, but trust me on this one. It's celery. Celery, there's a lot of people out there selling sugar, but celery is where it's at. Celery, it's nutritious, it's good, it's wonderful. You should try celery. So with all of these mentors and titans of industry and these people you really respect that you met at this cocktail mixer, you go to the grocery store and you load up your cart, chocolate topping, marshmallow topping, M&Ms, Oreos, and as much celery as you can fit. And you go up and you're loading it on the thing, and absolutely no one has any idea what you're doing. Like it makes no sense. It doesn't tell a story.
So the celery part of the celery test is the factor that stands out as not fitting the narrative.
Right. And now, I mean, is this person creating an ice cream bar? Clearly not. What's the celery for? Is this person health conscious? Clearly not. Yeah. What's all the other stuff for? From a personal standpoint, from a personal narrative, from a personal branding, from a business branding, from all of these different things, it's really important that people can look at you and understand what it is you're doing. Because as much as especially nonconformists like to say, well, they'll figure it out. I got a plan. That makes people uncomfortable. If people don't understand from the outside, like what it is you're doing.
So in this case, is the shopping at the grocery store a metaphor for branding and advertising, or is it the assumption that like even the stuff you're doing internal, word will get out and people will know? Like, is that kind of where we're going with this?
Yes, to both.
Yeah.
To both. You and I did a piece of content a year or two ago for LinkedIn of like, pop quiz. What about your business isn't communication? Answer: nothing. Nothing isn't communication. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. The people outside the organization might not know if you use Monday or some other, project management tool, but your internal people do. They understand, are you rolling out new tools all the time? That says a lot about what you're doing. It's a little bit of a distraction from the main point here, so I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but are you an organization, let's take Jeff Bezos or Google, Sergey Brin and Larry Page. We take these organizations and Jeff Bezos, he buys a newspaper, he buys this, he invests in this. Elon Musk, same thing. If you take a look at Elon Musk's whole portfolio from PayPal through SpaceX, it makes sense. There's nothing that's like, that's insane. If you look at the history of Apple, everything they did, even the stuff that was a little quirky, it fit in the... Yeah. If all of a sudden in the 80s, if Apple started buying up farms and was doing buy a computer and organic produce, it'd be like, I don't get it. If you can't make it, people respond very clearly to the narrative that you are sending out, what you are putting out in the world. If you are picking up every best practice of every company, if you're buying every book and applying all of the wisdom all at once, you're saying everything, and therefore you're saying nothing. You're saying you're aggressive. That's good.
Is it just a kind of a Venn diagram with the all of the messages about focusing and not? I see the distinction. It's a little bit more about how you're perceived than right. It's not just losing focus and wasting time and effort. It's also perception is 99% of it.
It's both perception and choice. You go back to that cocktail party, and you're thinking to yourself, I am an organization that is about fun and fluff and good times. And then you listen back to those conversations, and you have all of those sweets and then Celery, you can go, I trust Jim, and I know Celery really helped him. And I'm not disrespecting that in any way, but that is not the tool for me. Not just is it not the tool from a business standpoint, but it will signal the wrong thing to my coworkers. It'll signal the wrong thing to my associates. It'll signal, it's not on brand. It's not on mission. It's not on focus. I'm not saying Celery is a bad idea. I'm saying that Celery won't work for what I'm working on right now. I am building an ice cream bar, and that won't work.
So to do this properly within the metaphor,
sure.
The idea is not that Celery did work for that guy.
Absolutely.
The guy that suggested it to you, it's not a bad thing.
Correct.
It's just that he built his business around Celery, and you're clearly going the Willy Wonka route.
Absolutely.
And so, like, it just doesn't fit.
Right. So, because the thing is that if you want to justify that, you could, again, remembering the show is about cognition as much as we have cognitive biases and confirmation biases all the time. If I want to prove something will work, there's a book that will prove that it will work.
Yeah.
Whether it's lay off every single whether it's lay off every single employee, whether it's hire a bunch. I follow 2 different female entrepreneur business owners right now, and one of them is the absolute queen of offload it. Like, hire someone else to do it.
Right.
Hire someone else to do it. You do not need to be spending 1 minute doing $10 an hour BS. Hire someone for $10 an hour to do $10 an hour BS. Your time is more in power. And the other one, they're very similar in every single way. In a lot of, but the other one is, I spent 3 years and I didn't hire a single person until I couldn't possibly do it. And I only launch a position when we're at 110% capacity.
Yeah.
These 2 women are both insanely successful. I respect the crap out of both of them. I interviewed both of them for my book. They're both in there in the chapter Defying Gravity. They're both in there. They're both massively They're both massively successful and wonderful. They could not disagree or differ, at least on, now if I got them in a room, they might both explain, oh no, we agree except XYZ, but on the face of it, one says anything that someone can be done by someone for $10 an hour, let them. And the other one said, no, until you are at 110% capacity, don't you dare offload anything, because that's a waste.
Yeah.
They both have a different mentality. One is saying Oreos and one is saying celery, and neither of them is wrong.
So what you're saying here is there's no easy answers. Thanks a lot, Kirk.
Yeah, no, like you're like, oh great, I thought I was going to get some insight, and all I found out is that there is no. What it is, it gets down to that word that you've heard me criticize so much, and that's authenticity. It's, I can't be either of these women. I have a different view of how I want the business to run, and so if I have a solid understanding of here's what I believe in, here's what I want to do, here's what I want other people to see me do, here is what I am about, it becomes really quickly that I agree with the let's hire someone else to do the things that they're better at. I in this example, I believe far more in someone else is going to do this faster and cheaper and better. Let's let them. I don't have to spend 10 hours learning to do something half-assed. Like, I don't want to.
So what else is in this book? Why should I read it?
So start with why is, I mean, it was a huge bang several years ago, and it is an amazing book. It talks about more or less this. It talks about how if you understand why you're doing something, it really can help the what you're doing and the how you're doing it. He talks about, we've mentioned the limbic system and the neocortex, and he gets into what those mean about if we understand what is our driving force, what is the thing that gets us up in the morning. If we know why we're doing something, the what and the how kind of fall in behind it.
Is this the book that made you draw on the table 4 years ago?
We drew on the table, but yes, we did a whole Start With Why seminar a couple years ago about who are we at Glass River Media.
Yeah.
It's where we got our slogan, Don't Be Ignored, because our why was we help craft and create your message so that you cannot be ignored.
Right. In that case, yes, we got out the butcher's paper and we had a bunch of crayons.
Right, because we were having this exact problem, 4 years ago of Zeke was still with us at that point, and he was saying we need to be doing these things, and I was like, those are good things, but is that who we are? And I was saying we need to be doing this, and and we had 6-7 employees at that point, and we were all great, and we were all brilliant, and we were all having a great time, and we all had a great work environment, but our actions were sort of all over the place. And that was reflected when we went to networking events, when like Corey and I would go to a networking event and we started talking to people. They're like, what do you guys do?
Yeah.
And I know that you experienced this as well.
Too many answers.
We did too much and we did too little and we did nothing very well. I mean, we did everything well, but all of a sudden, if we fall in line to, we craft and create your message so that you cannot be ignored. All of a sudden, we're not a marketing company. We're an attention company. We're not a PR company. We're an attention company. Mm-hmm. We're not a, do we still do video? Of course we still do video. Our how didn't change.
Yeah.
Our what didn't change. Our why didn't even change. It just helped us understand, could I make you a web explainer video? Yeah, still can. But not just to explain what you do, but so that you can get attention, so that you'll stop being ignored.
That's the point, yeah.
It by changing the why, by understanding why you're buying celery or not buying celery, it suddenly can contextualize your entire message. It can contextualize why it is. And again, Simon Sinek does a much better job of explaining this.
Yeah, back when we were doing that, I remember you explained it as that, and this was 4 years ago, I don't know if this is still their case, but at the time you explained to me that Uber and Lyft, their how was the same.
And their what is the same.
They were both taking drivers in cars and finding riders for them, but their why was different.
Completely different.
They started from a completely
different mind frame.
And explain that.
That's a really good example.
Back to me again.
So yeah, that wasn't 4 years ago. That was 2 years ago. But no, Uber considers themselves a logistics company. Uber wants to get you there, wants to handle it. They want to get food to you, you to it. Uber wants to take over the subway company, the airline company. Uber wants to be
rental bikes.
The rental bikes. Uber wants to be the logistical hub of the universe. We'll make that happen. Lyft wants to get cars off the road to save the world. And I'm being unbelievably overly simplifying on both of these individuals, both of these groups.
Yeah.
Lyft wants to build a community around ride sharing. They want social responsibility. They want less emissions. They want a good community of people. Just let us join together and share rides because it's the right thing to do and it's a good thing. And these aren't just marketing. This is truly company ethos.
That explains, if they make a choice, does it serve that purpose?
Right. And so like I was in a small group meeting with the head of marketing and an entrepreneur was asking like, why doesn't Lyft have Lyft Eats? And she said, doesn't that play into getting cars off the road? Like people don't have to go out anymore. You're still helping. And she said, yes. And we played around with this idea and we played with it in a few test markets and we found a few things. First, our drivers all hated it. Our drivers hated it. Second, made their cars smell First, because it made their cars smell. They were getting the parking tickets from running in.
Right.
There was all sorts of problems. And they hated it, and we wanted our drivers to be happier, so we discontinued the process. And the entrepreneur said, wait a minute, so like you stopped your activities because your employees didn't like it? And she looked at him and she's like, yes, absolutely. Because Lyft, everything, their celery, their marshmallow sauce, their Oreos was about they want to build a community of people helping and growing together and getting cars off the road, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Uber wants to take over everything from FedEx to American Airlines. They want to take over logistics. It's the same what? It's the same how. It's a very different why, and those whys completely change their... And so as such, Uber has been in the news several times with kind of abusive behaviors and abusive practices and money issues and things like that. And Lyft is just...
Not so much.
Not so much. And if you track that back to their why, it makes a lot of sense. It tracks through their entire business model. I mean, even down to the colors they choose. Lyft is pink and bright and fun, and Uber is very corporate. And there's nothing wrong with either of those things. I'm not trashing on Uber or regaling Lyft. I'm more of an Uber-minded person. Let's take over the world. But when you know their why... And they don't have to advertise that. They don't have to like...
Right. That's for decision making.
That's for decision making. But this concept of your why, this concept of understanding your brand, the Celery Test, is, does this activity reflect my values? And not necessarily perceptively, although also that. Like, does this communicate to other people that I am what I'm about? Does this distract if I only have so much money, am I wasting money on celery that's not going to help my mission?
Would you describe the celery test as a shorthanded version of explaining what why means, or is it something that once you figure out your why, it helps you in day to day?
That one. I don't think it's. I think your why is bigger than just the celery test, but it's a really shorthanded way of saying, because the cool thing about the celery test is it does not tell you to not buy celery. Mm-hmm. It tells you to understand why you bought celery.
So for our listeners,
yeah,
this is a cool little thing to think about. But I guess like if we back up bigger, if you're somebody who knows your company's why, then hearing about the celery test is like, oh, that's a good application of it. That's good. But like, let's back up. If somebody is not familiar with start with why in the first place,
sure.
Like this is the time to lay it out. Like, should they be reading this book, or what should they be doing if this is all new to them? Like if you're an entrepreneur and you're out there and you're like, I need to market, I need to brand, I need to figure out my business, starting with why is great, right?
Absolutely. Now, I will say that the why concept is both very accessible and a heavy lift to just jump into, especially if you're starting a business. If you're knee deep in things, taking a break to dig into this concept is not a light lift. It's a heavy.
It's not an afternoon.
It's not an afternoon. But if you look at this, for those that are super emotional and super empathic, looking at this of authenticity and understanding your goals is a very solid way. Why am I buying the celery? Why am I getting this service? Why am I hiring this person? Mm. Is it serving this emotional purpose? But the great thing about this is there's so many things in the world that are bifurcated. They only serve one or the other. You can do the celery on the other side. We can look at this totally systems based. We can look at this absolutely type A, screw the emotional crap. Like this is supply line management. I have $10 to spend. Is there money for celery? Why am I spending the money on the celery?
Right, instead of something else.
Would it be better to keep this money in the coffers? I don't need to know the emotions. I don't need to worry about the why right now. I still really recommend understanding the why, but but the supply line management.
To figure out where it goes in the order of importance.
I have $10 to spend. Marshmallows? That tracks. We're doing an ice cream bar. M&Ms? That tracks. Doing an ice cream bar. Celery. Okay, I'm not saying celery didn't help Jeff Bezos. I'm not saying celery didn't help Steve Jobs. I don't think that celery is the right thing at this juncture. The cool thing about it is, though, if later your business hits dire straits and you're like, you know what, I could open a farmer's market and I could flip celery real fast.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. It doesn't tell you you can't buy it. It just makes sure you understand why you are.
Why you did, yeah.
It's not a barrier. It's just a thought exercise of, is this the right thing and again, it can be applied to branding. What am I wearing to work today and why? Am I projecting the thing, do I wear a tie to work? When I was working at the event management company many, many years ago, I got promoted to a job and they said, you can still wear blacks if you want, but you're now at a role that you're allowed to wear a suit. And I started wearing a suit every day, and all of the other people that were of my old coworkers like, dude, you're still allowed to wear the t-shirt and cargo pants. Why are you wearing a suit? And I said, because my clients treat me completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. I have the same title. I have the same job. I have the same money. Nothing changes. No one is telling me to do this. But the clients that come in treat me completely different if I'm wearing a suit.
Yeah. No, I ran into that when you had that job. You'd bring me on, and for whatever reason in the tech world, almost all tech guys are allowed to just wear black, button shirts, polo shirts, button shirts, dress, show blacks is what they called them. And I was a camera operator, and for whatever reason, camera operators had to wear a suit. I guess it's because we're out in the room, we're not behind backstage or anything, and so we always had to wear a suit. And so this would happen a lot, where we would come in, and it would be a crew of 20 guys. The guy in the suit's in charge. There's 19 guys in black polo shirts, and then I'm the other guy in the suit. And so the client would come in, and it's like, oh, 2 guys in suits, and like all of a sudden I'm getting asked questions and they think I know everything. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm just the camera guy. Like I know I'm dressed fancy, but like you need to go talk to that guy.
The last weekend I wore show blacks was, I had just recently been promoted, and I It was a really small show. There was only 2 of us, and this guy came. It was an expensive show, but it was small on the crew side. And I was just wearing cargo pants and a polo shirt for the whole weekend. And I'm working every day, all day with this client, and we had been communicating via email for months as their show was coming up. And it was like Sunday night. The show's been since Thursday night. The show's and he's like, "Hey, so do you know this Kirk guy?" I'm like, "Yes,
I know of him."
And he's like, he never even came to like say hi. Like, we've been communicating for months. And I was like, "I'm Kirk." He's like, you're the show producer?" I was like, "Yes." Like, "I've introduced myself. I gave you my card." He's like, "I thought you were just my assigned tech." And suddenly, like, again, he had written me off so completely as just his helper.
Yeah, he didn't even read the name on the card.
I gave him my card. I was wearing a name tag. Like he had written me off so completely as the help that he didn't even know that I was the guy he'd been communicating with for months, and he was mad at Kirk for never having showed up.
Yeah.
And again, you could argue, what an elitist piece of crap, which for the record, totally true. But still,
There was a reason there was an opening for him to fall into that trap.
Right. The Celery Test. He didn't know what I had showed up, and I was not presenting myself with the story that he was waiting for. He had had a bad experience. He had not. He had had a bad experience because he was waiting for the producer, the show fixer, to show up.
Yeah.
And he never did. I was there the entire time, but I didn't show up as Celery. I showed up, or I did show up as, like, I showed up as something he wasn't expecting or didn't need or didn't want, so much so that his cognitive bias didn't even recognize I was there for 4 days.
You can exploit that too, by the way.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong. This is a cool cognitive trick to go the other way. You can disappear into a crowd real quick if you're at a hotel dressed in black.
Yeah, no, it always amazed
or a
me
tuxedo.
when I got sent to new hotels. I would be wearing a suit, and they'd be like, I would go into the kitchen to the employee elevator, go down 2 floors, wander around the cleaning staff where they clean all the sheets. And, like, I'd be wandering around the underside of these large hotels, and then I'd finally find the AV room, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, sign in here." And, like, it always struck me as like, wow, I could just do that in any hotel, apparently.
So when again, kind of my last, same exact thing, when I was working conventions as a vendor, like, I'd be, my boss or my client would be like, "Hey, we need XYZ." He's like, "Oh, I got this." And I would just disappear to a service corridor, and I would come back 20 minutes later with a table under my arm, and they're like, "I don't think you're allowed to do that." I'm like, "Oh, I know that I'm not allowed to do that." But
nobody stopped me.
But the thing is, this is a hotel. I've worked for years in hotels. I walked past a manager. I walked past a bunch of, nobody said a word, because I know what hotels look like.
And steal food and you're in trouble. Move a table, not a problem.
Not even unethical-ish. So again, the Celery Test, it's not prescriptive. It's just it's a good thing to understand why are you doing what you're doing, and understand that other people are reading their story. That guy, I was showing up. I was doing my job. I checked in on him all day, every day, from Thursday through Sunday. I was there. Anytime I heard of a need, I took care of it. But because I did not project what he was looking for, he missed that I was there entirely. And again, it is so easy, especially in modern cancel culture, to point the finger at him and say, "What an elitist asshole." And you know what? Absolute true. But it doesn't matter, because he was the victim there. He didn't get the story he was looking for.
Yeah.
We need to project the story we mean to tell. And if our client is looking for something, we need to be communicating that authenticity. We need to be there fulfilling that story. And I could have gone the other way with this story. I could have been like, "I'm never wearing a suit." If people don't want to see that I'm there, that would have been another reasonable takeaway. I went the other way with it.
Yeah.
But the Celery Test is the precursor to Start With Why. It's not a shorthand for it. It's just everything you're doing, whether it's what you're dressing for work, what new programs you're adapting, understand why you're spending the mental energy on it, and figure out if it is honoring your goals or distracting from them. And that's kind of it.
So don't take the celery home because marshmallows are tastier. That's the lesson.
Why would you buy celery? It's like calorically no celery. Gross. Thank you all for joining us. Release the Creative. We will see you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks for joining us here at Release the Creative. Kirk here would never say it to your face, but he thinks you should like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
And Jeff is far too shy to admit it, but he thinks you should subscribe to us on your favorite podcast reader.
Yeah? Well, you're the one who's always saying that everyone should give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Why do you have to make everything so difficult?